you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. You know, it's a crazy time that we're in, and I'm an American and I'm in America, so a lot of what I'm going to be telling you is what's happening in the US, but certainly chime in to let us know what's happening across the world, because I'm sure we're all being affected by this. And this is an area that is just it's just going to continue to grow, even I think even after the pandemic is over and we start getting back um, into being back together again. People are going to see the benefits of being online, and honestly, it's just going to help my business, truthfully. But I wanted to share with you what's happening in the US right now. And my daughter is actually doing my slides for me, so she's the one that's going to be switching things for me as we go. And you can say, I must say I'm very proud of her. She does a great job. So schools across the US are, for the most part, closed, and for the rest of the school year. There's a couple of hanger-oners that are possibly going to open back up, and there's talk of schools opening back up, but I just don't see it happening. And it's sad. I have a son who's a senior, and he is not getting to experience his senior year, which breaks my heart. But you know, it is what it is, and we live in the times that we live in. An interesting part about this, and the reason that I put this slide up and I wanted to talk about it, is that our U.S. Secretary of Education, one of the things that schools here, and I don't know if this is happening where you are, but they were requesting waivers for IDEA for students with disabilities, that they wouldn't get their services because the schools just aren't providing them. They don't have a way, or they're not able to provide those services, whatever the situation may be. And there are numerous, and I'm not going to place blame anywhere, but she said no. She said absolutely not. She said the secretary is not recommending Congress pass any additional waivers. So that means that we are going to have a whole bunch of services that have not been delivered and are going to be federally required to be delivered. And so compensatory sessions are going to have to happen, and it's an interesting thing. I'm actually even on my website having parents reach out to me and say, hey, our kids aren't getting services. We would rather pay privately and have someone provide it online than have nothing. So, you know, it's just something I've started seeing this last couple weeks, and I'm going, oh my goodness, where are we going to go from here? So, so what exactly is online therapy? And I'm going to talk mostly about therapy, but this will also pertain to teachers who are going to be doing some online services as well. Hopefully you'll be able to take some takeaways from this as well. Online therapy is actually the application of secure video conferencing software that is secure. Whatever that security is, in the US, it's HIPAA and it's FERPA. And it is real time, like we're doing right now, at a distance, with the use of quality video and audio feeds. So we can see each other, we can hear each other, we can laugh, we can joke, we can do whatever we're going to do, and be able to provide those services in a way that is considered appropriate, and the studies have shown that it's effective. So then let's talk about what equipment do you need. Obviously, most of us here know, but for those that are new or that may view this later, the first thing you got to have is Ethernet, an internet connection. And I recommend Ethernet over Wi-Fi because Wi-Fi fluctuates up and down. That's what happens when you're married to a computer programmer. You realize that there are definite ins and outs of the Wi-Fi. So having yourself hardwired is always the best choice with an Ethernet cable. And then of course you need a computer. And this is something that, you know, we talk about one-on-one. Do the kids have one-on-one in the US? Do they have an iPad? Do they have a Chromebook? Do they have a way? It can be done on the phone. It's not great, but it's better than nothing. But obviously the first choice for us would be the computer and having a decent sized screen. And then obviously you want a headset. I wear earbuds with a microphone on them. I can't wear headsets. They give me headaches. So I went to earbuds. But some way to hear and some way to see. Now, some kids, that doesn't work for them. They have to have your autistic kids that have those sensory issues, they have to have it out of the computer, and that's okay. But you have to have some way to hear. And then finally, You want to have obviously a computer, a keyboard, and a mouse. And if you're doing this as a teacher or as a therapist, a second monitor. I really highly recommend a second monitor, especially if you're doing assessments or if you're doing a lot of screen sharing. It just, in Zoom and in many of the other platforms, it just makes it so much better if you have a second monitor. So then the next thing I wanted to talk about then was what happens when things go wrong, when you can't hear or you can't see. So one of the things that I'm providing, and I'm more than happy to provide the handout for this to the group as well, is these are some common step-by-step solutions for tech issues. And, you know, checking the camera, restarting your browser, logging out, clearing your cache, all of these different things, restarting your computer, choosing a different computer if you just have a computer that's so old that the audio video card just can't handle it. And then finally contacting the tech support. We found with our staff that once we gave them these steps, I said, go through these steps before you call our live tech support, 80% of them are handled through one of these fixes. So even just the mute button, you know, check the mute button on the headset. That is definitely something that happens, and kids don't even realize they've hit that button. So, and then the next thing then is what can you use in these sessions? How do we get these sessions to be useful? And what tools do we have? You know, everybody talks about the tools in their toolbox. So obviously whiteboard is the first one. You can annotate over most anything on with the whiteboard in most of the software that's out there. Screen share, I talked about screen share. A lot of the assessments that we do are via screen share. We also have some that are specifically into our platform. Having a documentation camera is an amazing thing to have, because then you can see the child and you can see what's happening on the tabletop. This is great for physical therapists, for occupational therapists, even for teachers. I use it to see what's happening, and you can still see the child's expression, whether they're frustrated with what you're doing or what they're doing. And having that option is really nice, because you can do so much more demonstrating than, and also having a wide angled lens is an option as well. YouTube, obviously you want to preview YouTube before you show it to a child. And interactive games and apps, digital books. I love digital books. As a speech therapist, you know, books are just a big part of what we do. So, and then PowerPoint, PDFs, and Word documents. There's so many free things out there. If you just search on the internet, you can find all kinds of free things. That's another thing. I have Two Ladies as a resource where you can go to websites to get free resources. The 9 years that I was doing direct therapy, I never paid a dime for resources, because there's so much free stuff out there if you just know where to look. And there's even more now. And then flashcards. Flashcards are, you know, a staple, aren't they? And then we also have virtual rewards. Those are always really nice. Kids, you know, kids like, it's funny, the little kids and the high schoolers. Middle schoolers don't give them rewards. They don't want rewards. But the others, they certainly want and enjoy those rewards. And then finally, there's something, if you're not familiar, called boom cards. And boom cards are fun because they are very interactive, and they will target a very specific activity or goal or whatever it is that you're looking for. Then the next slide is a picture of what that looks like. This is one of my therapists, these two pictures, and she was doing some games, and were working on a specific sound. And this one on the left, on the top, they were actually sharing a YouTube video, so that's why you see the controls there. And then they were playing a Connect 4 game. And then the other one is the therapist side. The therapist side, as you can see, is much busier than the student side, because they have lots of different things, tools at their fingertips. And this actual picture here on the bottom left corner is our platform specifically. So, and then let's talk about what delivery of therapy services are available and who can get those services. Obviously, kids are all home right now. So, you know, at home, we obviously are doing this. There are 2.7 million students in the United States who are getting online services before coronavirus. And there are 56 million students in the US right now who are now getting served all of their education online. But kids before COVID-19, kids that were medically fragile, homeschooled kids, Kids that just couldn't handle being in a classroom would get online services. And then of course, people that chose to do that were able to get those services. So let's talk about now the delivery of those services. And let's see. I've missed a page. I'm like, why is my stuff not matching? Sorry about that. So the first session, when I started this 9 years ago, nobody trained me. It was like, here you go, do it. You know, so what is that? What do you do? Oh my goodness, I have to do this. I did have some help, but you really have to kind of, and many of our teachers right now are just, what do I do? How do I do this? So getting the first session, I say, is always different than your second and third and fourth and so on. Your first session is always going to be getting the kids comfortable. First, get yourself comfortable with the platform, whatever platform you're using, get comfortable with it, play around with it. Get a colleague on the other side and understand the basics. You know, you don't have to be an expert. I didn't become an expert the second day that I did this. It was time and spending that time practicing. So get comfortable with the platform that you're using. Just because they have a feature doesn't mean that you have to tell all the kids how to use it. Some features I never tell some of my kids. They figure it out on their own sometimes, but some features it's beyond their capability at that point, so don't worry about it. Play a game with them, establish rapport, do a skills inventory based on their goals or based on what you're trying to teach or be focusing on that week, and make it fun. You know, make it fun for the kids. These kids, they like it. They have a good time, and if you make learning fun, it's so much easier, and the time goes really fast. So then what does my second session look like? My second session is the first thing you want to do, especially right now, is how are you? How's life? How's it going? Are you okay? Truly want to know how they're doing, because if they're having a really rough day, that's going to change what I'm doing. I want to get them in a good space to learn before I even start a session. So knowing where their head's at, knowing what's happening with them, listening, knowing that someone's just there to listen, is sometimes the first 5 minutes, it's just like, oh, my sister's driving me crazy and I just want to rip her head off. You know, I mean, just giving them that opportunity to vent. And then I plan between 3 to 5 activities per session. And those sessions, those activities can be, depending on what that answer is at the beginning, I'll switch it up right away, or I'll have those activities that just flop. And so I'll be, oh, well, that's not a good one. Let's do something else. And I've stopped in the middle of an activity and go, you know what? This is boring. Let's go do something else. So we do. And you can also give them a choice between activities. Maybe they want to do just the fun thing first. And you can say, hey, you're still the teacher in the classroom. You can say, okay, this week we're going to do it that way, but next week we'll have to do our work first. It just depends on your kids. You know your kids, you know how they work, you know what they do. So, you know, giving them some choices helps them to feel like they have a little bit of control in a world where they have none right now. And then I incorporate my fun and my drill work into the tasks. You know, the drill work, the difficult tasks, make them fun. And then, you know, you get used to what you do and what you know. Pick things that you know. For me, I use digital books and websites. I use Tween Tribune. I love Tween Tribune. It's a Smithsonian site that has current activities all over the world. Epic books, YouTube videos. You can pause and annotate them. I love being able to do that. I use flashcards. Digital therapy books I use a lot because you know you can have a whole topic and just pick the page that you need. Whiteboard, on our particular platform, we have 4,600 stamps and we have the opportunity to put in more stamps. I had one little boy, he was autistic and he knew everything there was about reptiles and he loved crocodiles and alligators. So I put a stamp up there that I thought was an alligator and he promptly told me, Mrs. Courtney, that is not an alligator, that is a crocodile. And I was like, okay. But every time we had a game, he was happy because he didn't have to go through figuring out what stamped he was because he had his stamp, and that was fantastic. And then you can, with our particular platform, you can do a whole lesson just on the stamps because there are so many. Available services online that we have and can be used are obviously speech therapy, occupational therapy, and people say, how do you do occupational therapy online? We actually have a toolkit that we send to our therapists and we send to the students, and they have that way the pen or the activity that they have on this end is exactly the same as they want the one they have on the other end. So there's continuity of what they're doing, which I really like. And then also we send them out to schools if they're using them. And again, that documentation camera becomes very important. School counselors, school psychologists, all of the behavioral mental health services were available. And then physical therapy is also, and again, that wide angle lens becomes important, and a lot of parent consultation and making sure that they have the activities that you want them to follow through on. And the thing about it, the best thing about it, this next slide, I just love this little guy's face. Kids are digital natives. They don't know a world without technology. They have grown up with a cell phone or an iPad or something around them or in their hands, and they love this technology. They love to be able to learn in technology. They're learning in technology whether we want them to or not, because they're on their phones. They're doing these things. You know, the previous presenter was talking about online gambling and sports betting, and I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing. But I tell you, those kids know because they taught themselves. So what can an online therapist cover? Online therapists can cover pretty much anything that a face-to-face therapist can cover, whether that's direct therapy, assessments. We certainly have all kinds of digital assessments, and you can use screen sharing, and you can use that documentation camera to do assessments, IEPs, progress reports, case management. In the US, speech therapists can be case managers. So case management is definitely something. And I know school psychologists do case management as well. And then that compensatory time, we talked about how important that's going to be to know that we can cover that time for those therapists that maybe aren't comfortable with it, but it's got to be provided. We want to make sure that we have that, that you know that that's something that we can do. And something that you can do as well. And one of the things that I'll say now, but I'll say it again later, is because I've been doing this for a long time, I want to make myself available to people. If you have questions, if you have concerns, please feel free. If you have a question that you just are like, you can't find the answer to, and you think I might know, please ask the question, send me an email, set up an appointment with me. I will be glad to spend some time with people to help them, because I want to be able to help. So how can Lighthouse Therapy help with that compensatory time and what's happening in the world, and having all of these services that have not been provided? We want to be able to provide those services for schools that need them. Even if it's a temporary situation and you just need some help to get past that, give us a call, schedule a consultation. We will set up a proposal for you based on what your school or your district specifically needs. And then we will set up an agreement plan and we'll execute that plan. And our commitment to whoever reaches out to us when they sign an agreement with us is that we're only going to be charged based on the student's needs. We'll never charge beyond that. It's really important for us that even if you need one student covered, we can do that. We always want it to be less of a strain on schools' budgets. Schools' budgets are always like bursting at the seams, and we don't want to add to that. And our contracts can be canceled with a 30-day notice. We feel like we have such great services that you're not going to cancel anyway. And then there's, like I said, there's no minimum. We guarantee that you'll love your therapist, and you'll receive quality therapy services that are equal to face-to-face. And in some cases, studies are showing that they are better in some ways. I have a school psychologist friend who has done both. She's done virtual. She did virtual for several years, went back to the schools for the last couple of years, and then back to virtual. And she said they open up more in the virtual setting. Kids will tell her things more in the virtual setting than they do face-to-face, because they're in an environment that they're comfortable with. All right, so, wow, I made it through. I was trying to make sure I didn't run out of time. Questions. What questions does anybody have as far as COVID-19 in the schools? Because it's just, there's so much information out there. There's so much that's happening. So I was very fortunate. We started special education leadership development almost a year ago. We have over 1,000 members, so there's a lot of really smart people, smarter than me, in that group. So if you guys are interested, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can go straight to that link and request to join the group. And if you are somebody that has lots of knowledge, there's lots of people that have knowledge in this group, please feel free to post things too. We really want it to be a place where discussion happens and people are sharing ideas and getting the tools that they need to provide for the kids as much as we can. And then they also mentioned that I did do a webinar series. It was a 6-week webinar series, and it is on YouTube at Lighthouse Online Therapy. And it's just their 30-minute sessions about different topics related to getting online and how to get online. It's just like, this was a very compact version of what I did in a 6-week series. So feel free to go there as well. Thank you.